Are we
Oh
ever
yeah,
live
yeah, we're live.
on the
Okay,
podcast?
so yeah, about that PS5 tech demo, man. Were you actually impressed?
I thought it was pretty, real pretty.
Yeah.
I mean, it looked like the backgrounds were a lot more detailed than stuff. I mean, we're at the point of what is it? Diminishing returns when it comes to graphics and newer consoles, but the backgrounds looked really, really detailed and really like like off in the distance instead of
Yeah.
kind of having that like just that look. I forgot what they said. It was a lot of triangles, a lot of fucking triangles.
25 billion tries, bro. I don't
You
know
have
what
any
that means.
triangles? And you reflect the light off every one of those triangles. Look what it does. The lumens.
I don't know. By the time you sit there and you get in that video and you're watching it on YouTube, and then I watched it from like Layman Gaming or something, so I didn't even watch like the actual thing. I'm watching their compressed version that's being compressed through YouTube. It's being compressed, and then it's coming to me like 720 or something is what I think I got most YouTube videos run. It's like, okay, I see the light off the little individual pebbles and shit. But as far as like being really impressed, I really wasn't. They're talking big shit. If this is if this shit's correct, where you can just drop in these big things and you don't have to turn around as a game developer and spend months and months like trying to make it work or whatever. Because you could throw in some high res. When they first make a model, we'll use Resident Evil Revelations. Like when they made those models for the cutscenes, right? They were like these. They were almost something like Resident Evil 5 or 6. Then that was on 3DS. But when you got in the actual game, they had to dumb down the models. And so what they're kind of talking about there is that you're not going to – these models are either going to be dumbed down themselves or you could just throw them in there without having to do a bunch of work, scaling it down and actually making it work. And it would be probably good on the developer's end because, how often do you sit there and see these – ginormous, like stupidly huge worlds, and like how much time did this guy put on this one tree right here? It's like, because this tree looks different than that tree. Was it a randomly generated tree? I mean, probably a lot of it is. And then it's like, well, okay, well this tree got too much damn polygons or some shit. It's like crashing the whole game. We go find a tree and change it. But as far as like a gamer, we don't even notice that shit. If that was Tomb Raider, I'd have been through that thing in 5 seconds talking about where's the shiny at.
Yeah. It's one of those that look pretty, and I'm sure if you have like an 8K monitor, 8K TV, whatever, it's like I'm sure it's just one of those. But when you're playing it, it'll just become background noise a little bit. You know what I'm saying? Like when you're like the one part where they're running real fast or flying or whatever. It's like, oh, that's cool. But like I said, it'll be a developer thing more than it'll be a gamer noticing thing.
Yeah. And that wasn't the only thing. There's been a lot of new console type news. The other one was the Xbox third party presentation where we're finally supposed to see actual games running on Series X. And it was just a bunch of there was in-game CGI trailers. I guess we'll talk about the Ass Creed one, but it's because Ass Creed had already unveiled Valhalla like a week or two before, and so it was all CGI. It's like you see a CGI trailer, and I don't get any damn hype at all. And so we're going to sit there. Okay, well now we're going to see it at the Xbox conference, and what they show? A CGI engine trailer, no gameplay at all, and it's like, what the fuck? What are we doing here? That was your big reveal for Valhalla, and you kind of borked it up. And I've watched bits and pieces of it. There was nothing impressive at all. There was nothing that says, oh, this is what I need to buy a new console for. Not a damn bit of one thing.
It's just one of those, like, if you've already got an Xbox, it's kind of like, I mean, even if you've got an Xbox One X, it's like, yeah, this is more powerful, but unless you got the 8K TV and, maybe with the stimulus money going out, people be like, oh, I got to get my 8K TV now. Like, give it to me. It's like free money. So, but maybe that was the play. But at the same time, it's like, it's just, maybe if you didn't have one, maybe if you didn't have a PS4, maybe if you were just like, I want to get into gaming, maybe But even then, like I just don't see it.
We don't know the price of this damn thing. If an Xbox One S is $200 and your Series X is like $6, I mean, if you're just getting into gaming, I think
You ain't gonna buy that $600 one.
Yeah,
I mean, because have they confirmed the PS5 price yet? Isn't it basically like it's going to be almost 500, like give or take? Isn't that what the consensus is?
I cannot remember where I heard this from, but it's one of those things where $450 is what it takes to get it made. And so you're either going to try to sell it at 400 at a loss, which Sony might do because they're worried. Yep, they're worried about Xbox, but more importantly, you got to go back to PS3, $599 US. They are paranoid about hitting that again and being the laughing stock. Yeah. And so they might go at 400 at a loss or 500. I've always thought it would be 5, and at the Xbox Series X would be 6. I don't know. They specifically said they were kind of worried about what they're going to see what Xbox does. So if Xbox comes out and they say they're $500, well, your PlayStation is going to be $400. I'm almost positive that's what they're going to try to do, or at least $50 difference.
Yeah, I'm about to say, I'm thinking like they might just produce it at cost just to be like, to push the games. Microsoft doesn't seem to really give a crap right now about that, though. It's like, we don't care what you play it on, just buy the games.
Yeah, because I was talking to Jason. It's like, okay, for your Halo Infinite, you have to get that shit on Series X. It has to be on PC. It has to be on X1. It has to be on S. It has to be, actually, S is a little different than the 2013 model. So it has to be on 2013 Xbox One.
Yep.
And then I think it says it has to be on xCloud too. I don't know. It's like, okay, you're making 15 ports already for one game. And, but they need to really come in, and I think there's both are saying they're doing their showing in June. So just like what E3 was around June, we're a couple weeks out from where they have to drop the goods. They have to drop the price because we're 6 months out, and they're going to have to actually show games. And Halo, I'm not a big Halo fan, but Halo needs to be in there for fucking 20 minutes. And they got to show you why you need Halo, why you need Game Pass, why you would need a Series X or, to play it on PC. A reason, man. It's a reason that we should drop all this money for these consoles because it ain't here yet. Valhalla looks just like it could be on X1. It don't look impressive to me at all. And maybe that's on Ubisoft, but probably more than that, it's on. I'm looking at the CG trailer. I'm not looking at the gameplay, and so automatically I'm hyper suspicious that this is bullshit.
Yeah, I'm about to say, at this point, like, it's not like back in the day with Final Fantasy VII, where it's like, oh man, look at full motion video. It's now to the point of like, you could pretty much be able to make your models from your, CGI models be in-game models and get the same exact effect at this point. Yeah. So the idea that they're like, we're just going to show like a CGI trailer is like, why? You obviously have gameplay at this point. You should just go ahead and put it out. And it looks like shit and it doesn't matter.
Even back on Final Fantasy VII for PC, so we're looking at what, 98 or whatever, 97, 98. You had that Voodoo 2 3D acceleration for Final Fantasy VII, and you know what, and it ran at 60 frames. So your in-game battle scenes, even though they had crazy ass polygons you've seen everywhere, actually look better than that CGI scruffy shit. And if you went back today, it's like magnitudes worse. And even go back to say like some 360 games, or definitely PS2 games, or if they've been upscaled or whatever, they look better in high definition than the actual full motion video that was accompanying them. That used to be the reward for playing it. CGI is bullshit.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and that good old mid-eye music that was in Final Fantasy VII. That made no sense on that PCI port. But yeah, that's what it is. But at least it ran good on Glide. So
yeah, boy, back in the day, I remember it was a big deal because it was like it was almost like a big book. It was like, and you unfolded it and had the disc, and there was an extra disc. There was an install disc, and you had like I think you had a keypad layout that you could put over, I think, the number keys or something on your keyboard. I can't remember exactly. I haven't seen that in a long damn time, but that's how I played Final Fantasy back in the day.
I think 8 did the same thing. I don't remember the keypad layout, but I think it came like it was almost like one of those big old album CD things when CDs first came out, and they were like in the big old paper box instead of just the little, the little clear case. But I think 8 did the same thing where it opened up like a book or something, like a tall book.
Well, and then we're talking about that, and these days Final Fantasy VII's back, man. We'll get the next one in 16 years, PlayStation 7.
PlayStation 75. It's like, they'll show a trailer for it for the PlayStation 76. It's like, don't worry about it. It's coming eventually.
Yeah. I remember back when like 2012, 2011, before they even announced Final Fantasy 15, they were showing off their new big engine that they had spent this huge amount of time on. For this Final Fantasy engine. It was the same fucking thing. It was a tech demo of rocks, except it had an anime girl, I think, an anime wizard girl, as opposed to a fake Lara Croft. And that engine, they end up dropping the whole fucking engine. They spent so much time on it. It's like, you know what? This is better to do this shit in Unreal. Our game might actually come out then.
Oh, yeah.
And so we could be years out before we'll see an Unreal 5 actual game. You know what would really impress me, man? If they just say, oh, well, here's your Unreal 5 tech demo. Oh, and here's Unreal Tournament 5. Right now, you could get the shit. Even on Epic Game Store, I would be like, I hate Epic Game Store. We're about to get that shit, Tom Sweeney. We're going to get that shit.
Yeah, I would totally be down for that. I mean, it would just be like, oh, my God, they're doing another Unreal Tournament.
That would actually impress.
I think the last one I played was like 04, I think. That might have been the last. Was that the one that had the vehicles in it? I think that was the last one I played.
Yeah.
Hell, that might have been the last one that was out. I can't even remember the last time.
No, you had it. I think they straight up called it Unreal Tournament 3. So they ignored. Well, they could say combined 2003 and 2004, and kind of said that was like 2, and so they had a third one. And all I remember was there was like giant. Damn it. That was that movie with the Tom Cruise with the tripod. It was a tripod walker, alien type walker that shot lasers out. So it's kind of like an AT-AT. It was like a super duper vehicle. And they had tanks where you could have like drivers and like 4 people on passengers. Like it was G.I. Joe. And then you could like grapple onto the tanks and like ride on a hoverboard. That's about all I remember of. I played the shit out of it back in like 2008 because I wanted something on my new computer at the time. But it just wasn't as good as 2004, and it damn sure wasn't as good as 99. And after that,
and 03 sucked.
Yeah, and I think they did some kind of free-to-play early access shit that never came nowhere. Kind of like Quake Champions. It never really went anywhere, and then no one's even supporting it. And so they just gave up on arena shooters. And it's just sad because that's the ones I like to play. I like them because they're mindless and stupid.
Yeah, you just go in. That's like I remember in 04 they had where all the vehicles, and it'd be some freaking vehicle that could hold like 5 or 6 people on it, and somebody would grab it and drive off and fly off without it, and everybody just be standing there like, what the fuck do we do now? And he'd be like, thanks a lot, asshole. The rest of us got to run now. They just take off and leave. Or there'd be like you and somebody else trying to figure out how to get on one of those little motorcycle flying bikes, like at the same time. Like, like maybe if one of you stands on the other person's head, like you just stay on. But it never failed. I mean, I think that I want to say the copy I got came with a headset, I think. Or maybe I bought a headset for it, because that was like when I first remember like actually getting into like headset games. Because that was pre-360. And Xbox OG had a little bit of Xbox Live, but not a whole lot, Yeah.
Well, Unreal was always a tech demo. The first Unreal was pretty much a tech demo. I mean, it was an okay game.
It was. I just remember that intro always looking freaking awesome as hell back in the day on like the Voodoo 3, where it's like going through the castle and up around the castle. It was very pretty.
Yeah,
very very pretty.
But these days they'll sit there and make this big engine or whatever, and oh, we're not making a game to show it off. That's much damn work. We'll just keep making Fortnite.
Yep, it's like that's y'all's job. Y'all make the freaking game for it.
And one more bit, and this is, I don't think you've seen this, but I saw this, was we've got Ghost of Tsushima, actual pretty detailed gameplay. When I first saw it, it was revealed when Last of Us had the big reveal. It wasn't the first Last of Us reveal, but it was at E3. It was E3 2018, and I don't remember if you remember it, but they would literally make the entire audience who's sitting at there like move to different stages. And so one of the stages was the Ghost of Tsushima stage, and they had this white dude with a beard get up on this flute, and he's like fluting all about and shit. And I think he might have started crying. I'm like, either he's crying because he thinks his music is that great, or he's crying because he's hell of embarrassed because he's sitting there playing all this shit, this flute shit for like 10 minutes, and people just want to see the damn game.
Yeah, I don't give a shit. It's like that audience does not give a shit. It's like.
But then you saw it, and it was like, it looked like I'm like, I seen this and like, this game looks so good, it cannot be run on PlayStation 4. This is PlayStation 5, even though they haven't officially announced it. Had to be PlayStation 5, and it looked really damn good. It's just the actual combat looked like shit. But now we get to see, and it is a PlayStation 4 game. They've had to downgrade it or whatever. It reminds me of Horizon Zero Dawn, where I don't know if you ever played that. That game looks so good. It's got all those like flowers and shit blowing through the wind and stuff.
Yeah.
And the only thing is, and this is a real problem, is okay, on Horizon Zero Dawn, you're like freaking going against crazy damn T-Rex robots and shit, dinosaur robots, deer robots. You got all these crazy robots that carries the game. And here you're just killing Japanese dudes, man, and you're killing them like Ass Creed style. The combat looks very, very Ass Creed. Like it almost reminds me of you played Batman, right? The old Batman games, where you're just kind of fighting in on one guy at a time. They didn't have anything like, oh, we're press counter here type of thing, but it looked a lot like that.
It looked very similar to that. It's like a hybrid between that and Assassin's Creed.
Yeah,
that's kind of what it looked like to me.
Yeah, it looked like Ass Creed. And I don't know anyhow where Ass Creed should be, the standard you're trying to go for. Assassin's Creed wants to be Witcher 3. The last two want to be Witcher 3. And so it's kind of like, I was suspect before, but now I'm like, I'm not really too hyped about it. And I'm not the only one that we're kind of done with the open world bullshit. It's played out, man.
Yeah.
It reminds me. Go ahead.
There's so many of them. I mean, it's like there's almost an open world game for every type of environment you want to be in at this point. So it's kind of like, it's not like back when Grand Theft Auto 3 came out and you're like, oh my God, this is awesome because you can go around and do all kinds of crazy stuff. Or even when like Red Dead Redemption came out and it's like, oh, this is cool. It's like Old West. But now it's like you pick your environment. You can find an open world game in that environment, whatever you want it to be. They're just all over the place now.
Yeah, whether it's, flying in spaceships and landing on planets or, but the problem I've always had with them is that you make these giant open worlds and like the dev team that makes the open world is completely separate from the dev team who's actually putting shit in open world for stuff to do. There's a disconnect there. I think Dragon Age Inquisition is the ultimate example of that. That game sucks. IGN gave it Game of the Year in 2014. But, it's like vapid. It's empty. It looks really good, but there's not really much to do. There's busy work. That's what Ubisoft was really good about, giving you busy work. We're gonna light the damn map up with all of these things you could do, and you start doing these things, and it's like, okay, what's the point of me even doing any of this shit? Ghost Recon Wildlands was the last Ubisoft game I have. It's one of the biggest open world games I've ever fucking played. I don't know what it would take to walk it. It would take hours and hours to walk from one end to the other. And there's nothing fucking going on. You're just kind of, you're like, okay, I need to get, upgrade my mercenary guys or whatever. So we're going to fly a helicopter over this shit, try to get the damn map open up or, get the intel or whatever tower you got to climb the fuck up. Get that, then get the pieces you want, and just ignore the rest of the fucking game. Especially on Ubisoft, it's usually you find that one thing that makes your character broken, And in Wildlands, it was riding in vehicles with the damn computer guys helping you. And just okay, I got my vehicle. I can call it anytime I want to. Riding the shit, win the game. Everything is exactly the same. You come up into some kind of damn area. You fight a bunch of dudes. You might get stealth, but fuck that shit. Just ride your damn car in until it gets smoked and then you leave. It's just, and this becomes like, it's the copy paste game. I think open worlds, it's the de facto copy paste. And let me go back here. You know, in Atari 2600, it was the space blasty shit. On the Nintendo, it was fake Super Mario games that sucked. Then on Super Nintendo, it was like fake Street Fighters, and they were usually awful. And you know, on the original Xbox, it was first-person shooters, and now it's open world. It might be third person, it might be first. It's just vapid loss of ideas, and I think people are burnt. I mean, I damn sure am burnt.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of like with the Far Cry series, like Far Cry 5, which I enjoyed it, but it was like kind of like Wetlands. It's the same thing over and over again. Get in a car, drive it into a freaking like base camp, just start obliterating people. Yeah, you could do stealth if you wanted to. I mean, you know, that's kind of how it is.
Yeah.
Kind of like Assassin's Creed for that matter too. I mean, like you do some and then you kind of just say, screw it, go in there and just do whatever. But also a lot of times, like Saints Row, I didn't mind the story. I like the stories in Saints Row, but a lot of times the story would be like, this sucks. 5 minutes later, you're just going around doing random stuff. You know what I mean? Like you would not even be like remotely interested in what was really going on. You would just go off on little side things, not even side missions, just off doing side shit.
And for Saints Row and Grand Theft Auto, they have a key thing. It's a hell of a lot better to ride a car or a motorcycle than it is to ride a fucking horse and stare some horse's ass. It's just how it is. It's just way fun. And then you've got damn like Kojima, who's like, well, you know, everybody got to make open world. Let's make an open world where the walking's the main part of the game, and we're going to make the walking, you know, the key thing, the key gameplay. It's just it reached the retarded levels, man. It's stupid.
Oh yeah, that was like when that game. I remember what that one was like. When I would see the trailers, I'm like, so is it just delivering packages? Like it was kind of weird. And then it's like when it came out, I saw the reviews, and I'm like, yeah, that just doesn't seem appealing at all to me. Like it just did not look like anything I would want to play. Like just, you know, not escort missions, but basically just like, you know, delivery missions. It's like I don't want to play a whole game of that. I don't even really care for it when they have side quests that's doing stuff like that in those games. I sure as hell don't want to play it where that's the whole point of the freaking game.
Yeah.
And then walking up a fucking mountain that you got to figure out how to balance it. No, I'm good. I'm good.
And Drew always would say that I rush games like that. I just mainline them because often, well, you would think hopefully the mainline is the best part of the game. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes that Witcher shit on the side was better. But a lot of times, you know, if it's not mainline, it's literally go find and kill these 10 rabbits, man. It's stupid MMO shit. Or, you know, on something like Oblivion, where, okay, there's all these extra little areas, but they're all randomly generated and based on your level. It's like, okay, so should I go here in level 5 and get level 5 gear, or should I come back when I'm level 25 and get level 25 gear? And then he's like, you know what? I'm not going to do that shit at all. Who gives a fuck? Just mainline the damn game. But I like the option and freedom that they would, you know, if you wanted to stretch it out, you could. If you wanted to mainline, you didn't have to. Assassin's Creed, I've never played Odyssey and Origins, but they really pushed you to try to level your guy up. They forced you to do a bunch of extra shit, and then they had microtransactions to make it quicker, of course. And so that pissed off a lot of people. I don't think they'll do it, and I've heard that Valhalla is supposed to be smaller, but I just don't care to play these games. There has to be something really good. The dinosaur shit in Horizon, the robot dinosaurs, where each little robot, or, you know, they're not all dinosaurs, but each robot has its own attitude, and, you know, it's like its personality. That was really appealing to me, and that's why I kept playing that game. Had it been just, you know, oh well, Aloy's she's like Lara Croft with a bow, and here open world go, I wouldn't have been impressed at all.
I guess the question with Assassin's Creed is where do they go next? I mean, it
Well,
seems like they're kind of running out of like,
Apox.
yeah. I mean, it's just like, what are they going to do? Like a space one eventually, where it's like it's in space, or in the future? It's like we can project somebody into the future to see their great great grandkids and how they were assassins in the future.
In the future. And yeah. But how much assassinations do Vikings do? I mean, they do the pillage and attack during the night, but I mean, or do they do stealth kills?
Yeah, it's part of that whole like burn the ship after you get to the newfound land. It's like, yeah, it was stealthy. I mean, it's like, yeah, I guess they got areas they can go, but
Yeah.
Seems like they're running out.
I'm not impressed by that. And another problem with Ghost of Tsushima, there's already 2 more samurai type games out. I mean, they're more fantasy. Sekiro and Neo 2 are fantasy. This was trying to be realistic. But you're going to get compared immediately to them. And like, can you, as a Western developer, Sucker Punch made it, which they made Infamous. It's like, as a Western developer, can you compare to these Japanese developers and they're making samurai games? And I mean, just looking at it in 2 seconds, like, no, Neo 2 looks like a whole lot more shit's going on, especially in combat, where it's the focus. I want to play Neo 2. I don't care about this. And so they'll have to use like what they typically do. You have to use your presentation, your atmosphere, and your story to try to carry it, just like all of big Sony games. And people might be getting tired. So, but trying to move on to our main topic, old school Doom, man. I've been wanting to do a podcast on Doom for a long, long time. We just shit kept happening. We couldn't do it. So I'll tell you my story about how I found Doom. My friend Jesse had got a computer. It was a Windows 3.1 computer. I think he got it in 1994. So we're right in Doom time. And I'm like, oh, man, I heard about this Doom game because you'll see it in like GamePro or something. And he's like, we should play that. And then, or you should get that and play it. And he's like, dude, I already got it. And he pulls out this, it's like a sleeve of 10 discs. And they're like, you know what I'm talking about. It's like one of those things that drops down. It looks like a damn,
like the credit card things back in the old days of the wallets.
Yeah. It's like something you would hang up. You would hang up this 10 disc thing. It's like 10 discs for $10. So let me tell you, I don't remember what all he had on. This is the 3 games he had. He had Doom shareware, he had Wolfenstein shareware, and he had Wizardry 7. It's like, wow, it's like my greatest games ever. I didn't even know it at the time. But they're sitting there in this like 10 for $10 damn freaking thing. We couldn't figure out how to get. We started with Wolfenstein first. We could not figure out how to get that shit to work. You'd read the little shit or whatever, this little little paper that comes with it.
So were these bootleg sharewares?
No, these were the actual. These were not down, floppy disks. These were CDs with with a print.
CD. Yeah.
It was on the print, printed on and everything. So it wasn't like Magic Marker CDs. Actually, you couldn't even do that back in 94. Yeah. That was a couple years later. And so we get that shit. Finally, somehow figure it out. It's like you can't run it in Windows, so we had to go to DOS. We didn't know that shit, and so we go to DOS. Yeah, we did a step thing where we didn't know that after you install the game, it's there on your hard drive. We installed it every time we played it. Played Wolfenstein. It was so freaking engrossing. It's like we would swap. Who would have the mouse? Someone would have the mouse and would shoot, and the other person would walk around. And then we would swap it back it up. And then actually once we got Doom, it's like, we used the same thing to get Doom to work. When we looked at the first screen of Doom, it was like, wow, that kid looks kind of dark. But we're like, we want to play Wolfenstein. So we looked at it. We seen the guy bobble his gun up and down. I was like, we're going to play Wolfenstein first. So we went back and played shit tons more Wolfenstein. Then we came to Doom. Where mine wasn't blown yet. We played that shit. And we couldn't figure out how to get through the door at first. Remember, because the door...
Yep.
Doesn't look like a door. That first door you go through is that wide door. It's like 128 units tall or whatever it is. That's getting deep, the Doom talk. And then no, I think it was like 64 tall and then 128 wide. It was like this wide looking thing, but it was like a tech looking thing. Looks like something
some type of metal thing or something.
It was something out of Aliens, and so we didn't even know what it looked like. Finally get through the first door, and you start killing the little guys with the green hair, and then, you get a fucking shotgun, and the shotgun, you shoot it in the air, and you freaking reload it right there. That's like, compared to them just scuffled up pixels that all the Wolfenstein guns, it's like, holy shit, this is real life, man. And dude, we were in, and I had to sit there. A lot of times Jesse came over to my house more than I went to his. I was like, no, I'm going to his house. I'm going to go to his house every week all summer. I would ride a four-wheeler up there. I had a way where I could get to his house through the backwoods. It took me about 15 minutes to ride a four-wheeler through the backwoods. I mean, made trails and everything. Get up there to play Doom all night. And right there in the kitchen, because that's where because no one had a computer room or anything at the time.
No, it was like usually on a desk or something, or a homemade setup.
Yep. You go in there, you play it. The cat food, the dog food are right there. And so you have the smell of dog food while you're playing this shit. And you're like, this is the greatest shit ever, man.
It's like, it was just so, I don't know, man. At the time, it's like with Wolfenstein, it's like, even though it came before Doom, it's like Doom was just more gritty. Like, it was more realistic looking. Which is hard to say by today's standards, but for back then, it was like, holy crap, that looks like what a shotgun would look like. Not just a bunch of blocks put together to make some semblance of something. So he had shareware on CD.
Yeah. And,
I remember somebody at the flea market was selling, like, they had floppy disk, and they would sell the floppy disk, and they would be like, the Post-it note would be written on it, and it'd be like Doom 1, Doom 2, but it was like the shareware versions. They were literally selling the shareware versions.
Which I think was legal to do.
I think so. But I remember Doom 1, Episode 1, shareware was like 2 floppy disks at the time. It was, I guess total is probably 3 megabytes install or something, but I remember it was 2 floppy disks. And I did the exact same thing where it's like, I didn't realize that once it installed, it was on the hard drive. So every time for like the first 5 or 6 times I played, I would just reinstall it on top of itself. I didn't know no damn better. I was like, dude, because it had like instructions on the floppy disk, like, put in this, change to the A drive, it'd go in through DOS and, run setup. And you'd be like, oh man, I got to run the setup. It takes a while. So you wouldn't want to exit out of the game. Like if you're going to stop playing for a little bit, you'd just be like, fuck it. I'll go eat dinner and I'll come back and play some more, and just turn the monitor off, cause you didn't want to burn that shit into your screen. Like we
had to learn how to use DOS.
Just
so that we can play. Yeah. And it was like, man, I'm going to teach myself. I've got to learn this stupid computer language thing. I'm going to learn so I can play Doom. And, dude, it was so freaking great. And I didn't have a computer. The only thing I'd had up before was some kind of shitty monochrome orange thing from like maybe late 80s, maybe. And there was no graphics card on it because I was wanting to get, because I would see like Mega Man 3 on PC, and I'm like, man, I want to play Mega Man 3 on PC. Little did I know,
it was not Mega Man.
It was a shit disaster. At the time, we didn't know. And so it's like, not only did Doom create, really revolutionize first-person shooters and make it a thing, and deathmatch and co-op, on all that shit it did. It also kind of put PC gaming on the map, because up until at that time, there were some. You had Oregon Trail. Everybody knew Oregon Trail. But
Carmen Sandiego.
Yeah, Carmen Sandiego. But the Wheel of Fortune we had at work, but it was just nothing compared to like say what Nintendo could do. Even you play regular Nintendo, then whatever was on PC. There was problems with scrolling the screens and shit like that. It took them a long time to figure out.
And that was the thing, is like you're talking about it being monochrome. I remember like one of the first PCs my sister had that I'd play games on, and everything would be like what was that blue and pink color, like cyan or something. That, like everything played in that. Everything you played on it would be in that color. And I later on found out like you could like change the VGA settings by running in DOS. You could change it up by like adding to the command line. But
Yeah.
even in it, it's like it was only for if you had like a better video card for the time of doing that. But
I don't even know if you would call it a. Well, that's what I call it, but I only know. I don't know. It would have to be built in a motherboard, I guess. I don't know.
yeah, I mean, it's like, because I remember like that was later on I found out it's like, oh, if you had a better setup, you could have ran that game in multiple different outputs. But like I think one of them was like Aces of Aces. It was some flying game where it was like dogfighting and stuff like that. Very, very basic, nothing, you know.
No terminal reality or anything like that. Yeah.
No, nothing like that.
No
It was
Descent.
nope. No, what was that? Terminal Velocity game.
Yeah,
also
Terminal
or
Velocity.
something.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Um,
I think it was made by Terminal Reality. That's why I was getting confused.
might have been, but I remember it's like it was like it had the aesthetic of. In fact, one of the games that was on that that they had a disc for was like Operation Wolf, and it looked about like it did on Nintendo, except for on that computer because of the graphic capability of that computer. It was in that blue and pink, like everything.
Yeah.
But it was basically about the equivalent of the Nintendo port for what that was worth. But yeah, I mean, I think I learned more about DOS just playing Doom than anything in the world. Because it's like you would go to DOS. It's because you could run Doom in Windows, couldn't you? I think you could.
But
it took too many resources.
It ran like shit on 3.1. You might have had trouble with controls and everything else. Of course, you would have that shit in DOS. Well, the programming into DOS using your batch files. But in like Windows 95 computers, that's what I eventually got. I had to save up my money over a year, and my dad had ran like a side business of, he was the beginning of the side business he used to run with the metals and stuff. And I would help him. I would work my ass off and help him. And eventually, they still helped me. It was like $2,000 to buy this damn fucking Pentium 1 75 hertz at Circuit City, and you sit there and try to play that shit from Windows 95, and it ran like ass. I'm like, I spent so much money on this computer, man. What's going on wrong? I didn't figure out until I was about to log off. Remember, because when you go to log off of Windows 95. It says, would you like to restart in DOS mode? It's like, oh, DOS is what I need. And so I had to restart it in DOS. And then my game ran good. I was like, oh, thank fucking God. But no, it ran like shit in Windows 95 until you needed like a Pentium 2 or something.
Yeah.
And pretty much by the time, by the time you got there, you was almost at Windows 98 anyway.
Yeah. Duke 3D was the same way. Like you could run it in Windows 95, but it took so many resources on top of running Windows 95 that you needed DOS to you need to clear all that crap out, run it. It's like back in the old days where you'd have to clear your cache file, in DOS just to clear out your memory, so you could use all 4 megabytes of RAM, and not just 2.5.
Or you'd have to, my computer came with a Weezer video. He showed me that Weezer video, the guy who's trying to sell me. I don't give a fuck. This is about the CGI shit. I don't give a fuck. And once I figured out that those videos take up a bunch of space,
you just start going through there deleting that shit.
Deleting that shit. And I remember my dad would be like, "Here, look at this," and he's like, he found a video, and it was like some girl singing, and it was just god awful, damn, fucking trashy '90s indie shit. Anybody who lives in the '90s knows what I'm talking about. And so. I deleted his girl. He was pissed off.
It was on there with the Weezer video, and I every once in a while I will hear that song somewhere, and I'll be like, God, the only time I've ever heard that song was on Windows 95, and I don't even remember who sang it, but I would occasionally hear it on the radio and be like, who the hell gave a shit about this? I mean, it was just I guess it was just the idea of oh man, check what you can do on Windows 95, man. You can watch this freaking crappy video in low resolution.
It looked like shit. But at the time, you got to remember you had your Sega CD, you had your 32X, and Sony PlayStation and shit. And so full motion video is like a big thing. And you'd have entire games like Rebel Assault that was full motion video, and boy, they sucked ass. But that's the mid '90s, man. That's where we're at, and that's where Doom being a game made by 12 people when it's a fucking game and it's revolutionary puts all that dumb shit to shame. It's like just night and day difference. And at the time I was trying to save up for my computer, it actually came out on Super Nintendo, and so day fucking one, I had it pre-ordered. You could pre-order games back then. I had it pre-ordered, I think, from Funko Land, and they shipped that shit to me. I think I was paid like $35. It was a deal, and so I made sure to get it for them. And it ran off the FX chip. Boy, at the time, I hadn't played much at Jesse's house to compare them to PC. So at the time, I thought this is almost as good, right? This is almost as good.
No,
and then I showed Jesse, and he's like, look, it's almost as good, and we can play. And I played through episode 2 and 3 on that one. That's how I played them. And like, look, it's almost as good. That's where I found the secret level for episode 1 was in that one. It's like, dude, it's almost as good. And he looks at it, he's like, no, dude. It's just like you. It's like, no. Then you go back and you play it, and that's when your first time you really discover the glory of frame rate, bro.
Yep. Because I remember I played it on, my sister had like a 386, and that was when I first played Doom. She had the shareware version, and it was like, I played through. I mean, I would just play episode 1, like over and over again. Like I'd go over there and spend the night, and it would literally, like, as soon as I'd finish it, I'd go back and play it again. I kept thinking, like, oh, there's some way to beat this last level where you don't die at the end. And like, there's not. You can't even put on God mode and get through it. But it was like, just like, what if there's a secret,
Yeah.
But I remember, like, I had rented that game one day, and I'd played through Doom several times, and I remember renting it and being like, yeah, this is pretty damn god awful. I mean, the music was great. The music sounded really good because it was Super Nintendo. But like the frame rate was horrible. Wasn't it like zoomed in? It was zoomed out a little bit or something. Like it wasn't even full screen. I don't think. I can't remember. It's been a while.
It might have been squashed a little bit. So the walls had textures, but the floor and ceiling didn't. So it was just like, oh, if this floor was the blue carpet with a USC symbol on it, it would just be it's a blank blue. The enemies could only look at you, and they basically had the walk animation and like shoot. So even if they're walking backwards, they're looking at you. And if they killed you, they would actually go at a very high speed, and you could watch them go back and forth. It was some weird it was almost like watching them dance. I would consider watching them dance, and they would always look at you. And it's missing. Pretty sure it's missing levels. It would be missing levels like when I say M2, you know what I'm talking about, right? That's the level of the boxes, the boxes. The box level isn't in there because it's actually really, really big. And so I'm pretty sure you could pick your episode to start with, but it didn't have a save either, so you couldn't save at the levels. So it's like if you're going through episode 3, you need to go through all of it. Not all the levels are in there. I think E1M6 isn't in there either. I'm pretty sure E1M7, even though that's a big level, E1M7 is like a classic level. It has to be in there. I'm pretty sure that's in there. But it was really, really lacking. I didn't know at the time. And also remember, I don't know if you remember, if you strafed back and forth or moved up against the walls, you kind of got stuck in the wall kind of. You'd have to strafe away from it to get out. Some damn Fallout type shit. But that's for most people. That's probably where they played it first, was on Super Nintendo. I remember it came into that bright red cartridge, like Maximum Carnage.
It was freaking bright red, and it's like, it's like, oh man, look how cool it is, Doom's on Super Nintendo, and it's just I remember like renting it for the weekend and being like, yeah, this is just not near as good. And if I hadn't played the other one as much, it wouldn't have been. But it was just so obvious. Because I'd played the other one. I mean, like, in memory serves, it was like, you remember you could hit, like, the plus or minus buttons, and it would make the screen smaller. And I guess if you had frame rate issues, you could make it smaller and smaller.
I can't remember if that's definitely in the original game. I don't know if that's in the Super Nintendo one.
No, but I think it was almost like it looked like they had done that a couple of times. Okay. If memory serves, it was like it had a big black border, kind of like like it was like they had zoomed it down a little bit instead of being in full screen, almost like they were trying to make it in widescreen, but not really. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which I figured was like they probably did that to like try to help the frame rate, which was God, I can't imagine how bad it would have been otherwise.
I think that Wolfenstein 3D for Super Nintendo actually runs better. I have no idea what kind of crazy wizardry they did to get that game running, but yeah, I think it might have did that themselves. But because it
didn't do Doom on Super Nintendo, wasn't it like Ocean or something like that?
Midway does a lot of that shit. Midway was kind of their port person.
Yeah, I was about to say I remember it not being id, and it was kind of like it was like it wasn't right. Like, you know what I mean? You could just tell like somebody else did this. Which a lot of ports of Doom had issues. What was the one that had no music at all? Is that PlayStation?
No, let's talk about the PlayStation first. We'll go back to that one. I've only ever played the PlayStation a couple of times. They couldn't, for some reason, convert the levels over. If you get what I'm saying, we were converted for this. So they remade the levels to make them look like the original levels. Doom Super Nintendo's kind of got that going on too. But on PlayStation, it's almost like your guy's a midget. And so the levels are a lot bigger.
Yeah, like his scale's off.
Yeah, but the music, they had a custom, Midway did this kind of custom music. And they reused a lot of it in Doom 64 or variants of it. And it had this and you remember Quake 1, where it's that kind of crazy damn just screaming and shit and moaning. Yeah. That's what they had.
Hard rock, heavy metal, but also kind of like scenic music.
It's not, I wouldn't even call it metal. It's some kind of weird atmospheric damn experimental shit from Trent Reznor. Yeah. And then like straight up Quake 2 is just pure rock metal butt rock stuff. But this was but that's what Doom was. And so Doom 64 really kind of even enhanced that, I think, or at least in my mind, because that's the one I heard it first. So that's where the ones where the babies are screaming in the background. That's your music. It's so freaking creepy and weird. And so they did that, and it gave Doom this sort of. It always has like I don't know if you remember my review from a couple of weeks ago where I'm talking about. Well, Doom has this sort of like it's like got this horror element and it has this action element, and they're combined. Sometimes it's more horror. And sometimes it's like more action, and then but there was definitely going for like this horror or terror vibe on the Midway was when Doom 64 and Doom on Sony. Now the one that didn't have no music, it might have been the Jaguar 32X version. I know the Angry Video Game Nerd has reviewed those. They look like shit. I remember seeing pictures of the Jaguar version, and they had like. It just of course the pictures they'll show you on their freaking GamePro or whatever is completely not what you're going to see in the game. It looked like some CGI shit. I heard the 32X one is dog crap.
Yeah, I would imagine so. I don't remember if there's one on Sega CD or not. Can't remember. There probably was, but I don't. Man, there were so many. I mean, it seemed like they were porting out Doom to like everything. Yeah, for a while. Like, it's like like kind of what the ongoing joke now is like, can it run Doom? Like people putting Doom on their refrigerators and whatnot. But yeah, I mean, it's funny how like they're porting it to almost everything, but it was never really great. And it seems like it would have been very simple to like port that over. I mean, they even had it where you could make your own levels. It seems like you could have ported that over to almost anything. If you could make your own levels and do the WAD things, how hard would it be to, get it right on a console? Yeah, it's just the Super Nintendo was just a pretty damn weak compared to, and they had the FS chick to get there, but it's probably just shitty port jobs on, or, the 32X thing kind of probably just sucked anyway. Yeah. It was probably a gimmick. And, Jaguar really going to get a good port of anything? I mean, the Alien versus Predator was good, but I think it was made for Jaguar first. And so I ended up playing Doom on Game Boy Advance, and it was not that bad. This has been several years later.
you had to turn off the lighting effect to get the frame rate work. So you turn off the lighting, and it played pretty good. I don't think it had any music. I don't think if it had, or the music was shit. But the Wolfenstein Game Boy Advance port was okay too, but it didn't have any music either. And to have no music at all on a game that needs music, it's just it's really weird. Yeah. Did you remember? Have you ever played Duke Nukem 64?
Yes.
They took the music out of that. Remember, it was on they had the grab bag theme from the start. That was in there. But once you played it, there's nothing at all.
There's like nothing.
Yeah, every once in a while you get like 9 or 10 background little effects, like you can hear water running. It's like, and it's very, very weird. It just does.
It's like something's missing.
Yeah. It's immediately, even if you were to play that first, you would be like, something's not right here.
That's like Duke Nukem had the same style. It's like that like kind of rock sound to it, that rock like Doom. Like
it's done by the same guy.
Yeah, I mean, it's like when you play Doom, it's like episode 1, mission 1. That music, man, it's like it's in my brain. I could do that one note for note in my head. It's like it gets you kind of going. Your heart's kind of going. It's like good pump up music, and you're just going 100 miles an hour. And same way with Duke Nukem, like when that first, Duke Nukem 3D, when you get in that first level, it's like just want to go shoot stuff.
Duke Nukem kind of front-loaded its good tracks and shit toward the middle. I appreciate Doom 2 a little bit more than I know. The music is not as good. It's definitely different, but there's some really good Doom 2 tracks in there. They're much more low key, but that music, even coming out of them dinky ass shitty freaking Circuit City speakers, and it's like MIDI. And, we didn't know that you could buy a big fancy MIDI card and make this MIDI shit not sound terrible.
You're all 64.
Yeah, the all 64. That eventually became a big thing. And then at the time, you just had the Sound Blaster 16 or whatever it is, man. You had
that.
Yeah.
I remember when I played it on my sister's 386, they didn't have any speakers hooked up to it, and it had the PC speaker. And you could barely hear it, and the first time I played it, I really didn't know what it was. I thought, because like the imps would make that kind of clawing sound.
Yeah.
You're like, what the hell? I thought it was like the hard drive grinding, like when a hard drive start trying to load stuff or something. And then I'd be like, oh, wait a minute, that's coming out of the PC speaker. You could barely hear it. And like I said, that was like running in DOS, so it wasn't like, oh, let me hit the volume button. There wasn't anything like that going on. But
it sounded, it was like, it was like some weird, just, it would be almost like sim language.
It was like weird. You start hearing stuff and you're like, what is that noise? And then you realize like, it's like, oh, it's coming through the PC speaker. Like I said, that was back before, like, it's like, and then later on you find out like, oh, even if you do have a Sound Blaster 16, you got to preload that stuff up in DOS, You'd have your like Doom back command file, but you'd have it set up so it could add mouse to it and Sound Blaster 16 or AW64. You'd have to do all that. You have to preload that shit.
Yeah. Thankfully, Jesse's computer, pretty much once we got the DOS and we got it, we had the music, because dear Lord, we would never figure that shit out either. But the Super Nintendo one had I think what was it called, X-Link or whatever. You could actually link up to somebody else and play it with them. They actually had the deathmatching co-op in there. So that's one of the first times I'd heard about it. It's like, okay, there's multiplayer, and of course, if you had two, PlayStations were expensive at the time. You're looking at $95.
Oh yeah.
PlayStations were at $300, but if you had two PlayStations and of course 2 TVs and 2 Dooms and the special system link cable, you could play Doom with another person. I'm like, wow, this is insane. And so because we had just been swapping keyboards and mouses, and so eventually like, oh well, you could play your PC version like that. And I was like, okay. So I had a computer and he had a computer. I'm like, well, how the fuck did you do this? And this might have been like even a year or two in that we figured this out. You had to use Haynes Optima, man. Yep. Haynes Optima was your modem driver that somehow got your goofy ass modem to work, and then you had to dial up his house with your phone through the computer. And then like his computer would hear he would hear the ring on his end, and he'd answer it through the computer. And then you could finally fucking play. And it was like surreal once we finally got that shit to work, because this is pre-internet. So to figure this shit out, I'm having to go to like BBS's, or you just talk to people.
Yeah, it's like it was trial and error, a lot of trial and error. And what you did one day might not work the next day. You might have to switch it up a little bit, especially Duke 3D. You remember, it's like Doom was the fail safe. We could always seem to get Doom to work, but Duke 3D, it's like sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. So it was a lot of trial and error. Yeah. But like I said, it's like you talk to people and it'd be like, oh, try this, but there was no internet, not to go look for it.
Yep, and then eventually, only doing that, you can only play 2 players. So for deathmatch, that's kind of, for co-op, that's great. But for deathmatch, that was kind of, you really kind of need more people. It gets real old real fast. One person's just better than the other person, and it's kind of decided. And so you don't have like enough mix and match. But eventually I found someplace, I cannot remember the damn, I think it was called Action Game Network, and it was based out of Atlanta. And 4-player was not, Doom had a rough time keeping 4-player when you call into these network things. But I was able to play 3-player like that. Also, it came with, when you bought the like CD versions from Walmart, they came with like this thing called Dwango. You remember DWANGO? Yep. It's like, I cannot remember what it stood for, but it was like an official, like, sponsored Doom network. And so you would, they would play Descent as well, but you would go onto Dwango, and you had to pay by the fucking hour to Dwango. And so you would have, I could play for 4 hours. And so you'd go on Dwango. I think Florida was where I had to play. So it was long distance, of course. And so I ended up playing my 4 hours with Florida people on Dwango, able to play with more than 2 people. And then you play a whole lot of – this was Doom 2. It was a lot of Doom 2 on map 7 or map 1. And then I remember my code went out for down there, but I still could I bet you I could use it for another Dwango server. And so I went to Boston and played Boston for a couple hours. And I had to tell Mama – I told my mama, it's like, we're going to have a hell of a long-distance bill. I'm going to pay it. She was mad. But I paid it straight up. I told her in advance, I'm going to pay it. It's going to be like $50 to play Doom for a couple hours with some Yankees, man. It's just.
And that was way before, there was no, headset talk. That was just straight up, you could hit the T button and talk to some people. And that was it.
T. You press T to talk. There was not even a score or anything for deathmatch. So what you had to do would is you would, because you would talk to people on your network, and you'd have your handle, whatever. I'd be Whitesburg. And so I would go in there, and you had to say, I'm Whitesburg. And so you remember your guys were named, I think it was green, indigo, brown, and purple. If I remember right. I might be wrong. Or red. And so you would say indigo would say Whitesburg. So indigo was Whitesburg in that round. So you might not be indigo next time. You might be green. And then so indigo was basically black. And he had the advantage because he was dark. The bright green guy was fucking bright green, so he couldn't hide in the dark area. And, played the shit out of that. And they didn't keep score either. So at the end of the level, somebody says, let's end the level. You kind of say, you type out your score, like how many kills you got. Hopefully the guy ain't bullshitting you. I've got 10,000 kills. No, you don't, son.
It's just like I got 47 kills just on you.
And then I remember I would run into people who didn't have the Action Game Network code. I mean, they didn't have the sub. They would be in the forums like, dude, I'll play. And so you would literally call up random fucking people and you'd play. And I remember playing with one girl, and she was like, you got to be using cheat codes. I'm like, you can't do cheat codes in multiplayer. It's like I'd played so much damn Action Game Network, and we were playing Deathmatch 2.0. 2.0, all the stuff respawns. So your medikits, and I think maybe even soul spears respawn. The one that makes you invisible, that doesn't respond. So you could just even if you had to set up a run through, you'd go and just get all the power ups, all the freaking shit, and then they'd have to respawn for the next person. You just collect it again.
Yeah.
And then
It's like that GoldenEye body armor, man. It's like
yeah.
you knew where it was going to be, and that's where you kept an eye out. You get it, and you wait for somebody else to come get it.
Yeah. By these days, Doom isn't considered balanced at all because, you know, it's up close, it's double barrel. BFG, if the actual level has it, would be the most powerful shit because you would just shoot the fucking you would like hang off the side of a wall, shoot it at the wall, and then just look at the other person. They usually take huge damage.
Yeah.
The rocket launcher is actually an up close weapon. It's not shooting from far away because the Doom guy moves too fast.
Yep. You just strafe around that shit.
The chain gun, you tap the button because if you tap the button, the first hit is really accurate. The second sets of hits are never accurate. So you go tit it, and it shoots 2 bullets each time. And so it's like a sniper gun, but it doesn't have much damage. And shotgun would be okay, but you wanted a double barrel. You wanted that point blank double barrel. The plasma rifle was like if you could get a good beam on somebody and they're in a tight area. Otherwise, they would just outrun your bullets, your wave of bullets. And you couldn't see when you're shooting it either. But so there was a down priority of weapons or whatever. But they didn't have like these days you like start off with whatever weapon you want in Call of Duty or whatever it is. So you're this rank, so you get the machine gun to start off with. I think that's one of the reasons why I think Battle Royale's taken off because Battle Royale you don't start with shit, you have to go get it.
Yeah, you get it.
Yeah, and
it's like in Doom, it's like you start off with a pistol. And,
it's useless.
Yep. It's like it'll do some damage, but you gotta be played to get somebody pretty crappy, just to make do with it.
Yeah, it's useless. It's good for trying to gain an attention, or you might pretend like you're a guy who has a pistol
and it swap up.
Swap it out.
Yeah.
To get around the corner, you shoot a guy, get around the corner, switch to your double barrel, and he comes around, blow his head off. Some trolley shit. But that played tons and tons of those. You're playing with people, and then I guess we'll talk about custom levels because, dear God, that was another thing that Doom really brought. Because you had stuff like in Excitebike, you could make maps and things like that. I'm trying to think about any other damn game that literally lets you make your. I mean, I guess SimCity itself is a map making game.
Yeah. But, I was trying to think there's something else that was on Nintendo that was like that, but I can't remember.
Yeah, just like when you make everything.
Yeah. I mean, because that was the thing. It's like, I think when I got Doom on CD, when I got the full game, I think there was, I don't know, you might have given me a disc. Somebody gave me a disc, or I had a disc that was like, just nothing but Doom mods, and there was like a Simpsons one on there, and a lot of them were just the sound effects. It wasn't actually anything game changing, but it would be like all the Simpsons sound effects, and one of them was like a Beavis and Butthead, and then every once in a while, and you would just go through them. There must have been like 100 on that disc, and you just go through them and like, let me try this one, let me try that one, and someone would actually change games up, like it'd be different levels. Someone would have like different guns. It just depended, but it was like just ass loads of freaking mods.
Yeah. Well, people started off, I think they made levels by actual doing a hex edit, and they do it through freaking, their little hex edit damn spreadsheet thing. And so they figured out how to do it. And then I think Carmack was like, well, you guys are doing pretty good. So they gave out the tools. I think it's called DEU. I think Doom Editor Utility or some shit like that. And that was the start. And so you didn't need a crazy 3D CAD, computer-aided drafting is what that is. It's like where you would need 3 fucking screens to do something in 3D, like you do in Half-Life or Unreal.
Yeah.
What your editor would look pretty much like the Doom Auto map, and then you had what's called sectors, which would be just like a complete. It's like 4 walls or 3 walls have combined together. Like, so you can have a ceiling and a floor there, and you have a sector, and it's like, well, you can tell the ceiling how tall it is or how short it is, and then so for steps would actually be just like a line of sectors, and one would be each one would be shorter than the next one or whatever, and that would make your steps. And so there's no actual 3D over 3D, or if they did any kind of 3D over 3D, it was a trick. And there was a lot of things that they didn't design this game for people to make levels for it. And so there was a lot of like special rules you had to follow. I think there was it's called a visible plane overflow. If you had too many sectors that had invisible walls, which you would need invisible walls for each step or whatever, right? So if you had like a bunch of different elevations or a bunch of different colors, and you had too many of them, you would crash the game. And so you had to learn to, you can't really make a giant outdoor level. It's kind of like, oh, well, it's an outdoor type level. You might put some tree graphics in there or whatever. But it was pretty easy to use compared to a lot of damn shit they came up with eventually for, Half-Life 2 or something like that, where it's like a huge pain in the ass to do anything. And so I don't know if GT was their publisher, but all of these Doom things started popping up where they would just take collections of people's levels and they would put them on a CD and then sell it. And the one I remember most was D Zone. It was D exclamation point zone. And they were like, comes with 2,000 levels. And then it would have a crazy picture of a graphic of, well, you could make the game look like this. It was like, representation, whatever. But it would have the tools that you would need to actually start changing enemies around. And the reason they didn't have didn't change all the enemies around the way Aliens TC was the big one, right?
Yeah.
You actually, in order to do that, you had to include every fucking enemy graphic from the entire game. And so it ended up being like you would start off your WAD file, which would normally be just a couple of kilobytes or whatever, but it had to be 5 megabytes. So literally it's like half the fucking entire game, because Doom was like 10. And then so it'd have to be like 5 megabytes because you'd have to include everything, even if you didn't use. So when I started making my stuff, one of the things I did is like, since I have to literally include every fucking enemy, even if I just put like a red down dot on the freaking shotgun, the front of the shotgun, I would have to go and change everything. And so, fuck it, I'll change everything. And so that's how that kind of World War III stuff that I have shown on the screen. People are probably like, what the fuck is that? Because I've been playing it the whole time. But it's like, that's where that kind of came to be. And so D-Zone had it, and I forgot the damn name of, it wasn't D-Hack. D-Hack allowed you to change how the enemies and stuff actually acted. But there was a way that you could just do a bunch of changes and shit, and it was freaking just, once I fell into that, I just could not stop doing it, man. And so that was me, and I spent freaking years on that shit. Everything needed its own engine. Like even the end screen, like when the screen, after you've left the game and it gives you like a credits or whatever it is, you could change that shit. Or you could put in music. You had to convert it to what was called an MUS file. You had to convert your MIDI file over. And you had to learn how to do all of that crap and making enemies, stealing. I always stole people's shit. And so it's like a hodgepodge. And so
that's what made it fun, though. It was like a little bit of everything.
Yeah, you never knew what was going to be around the corner. So here's a couple of fucking chicken. A chicken's just the lost soul that doesn't have gravity. And so when he actually comes at you and attacks you, he bounces on the ground. That's just something that the lost soul, you'll hardly ever see the lost soul do that because he floats. But, if you take his gravity away and he strikes you, he might just strike and get stuck in the ground immediately, or he might pop and hop. And sometimes it gets to be really weird looking. But it was all stuff like that. So everything that in World War III, or even like Aliens TC, it has an enemy that's based out of. And so to change how the enemy works, you needed a program called D-Hacked. And so D-Hack would change like how many frames things do, or the speed of rockets or something like that. Or you can make even like a rocket that would that you could shoot. It was glitchy as fuck. The only way to actually, if you shot a rocket and you wanted to blow it up, you actually had to make a rocket that didn't move. It had to be just, your guy would shoot the rocket, stay there. So it becomes like kind of like a almost like a pipe bomb from Duke Nukem that you would activate by shooting it. But there's all of these crazy gimmicks and stuff that wasn't designed for Doom, but people were just hacking the shit out of it basically, and it kind of creates this weird hacking community. And I think that might have been a little bit in Wolfenstein, but in Wolfenstein you're stuck with doing right angles, and It's just nowhere near the kind of crazy shit that you would have. Because, you would have those Simpsons effects, right? You remember the Simpsons sound effects. But
Yeah.
there's a Simpsons total conversion where fucking Flanders is a cyber demon throwing Bibles at your ass. I mean, it's a thing. And you had all of these cool mods, all of these levels, millions of levels. So you could sit there and just play one damn game for fucking ever. That's kind of what I did.
I think D-Zone was the one that I had, because I think you gave me a disc and you're like, check this out, it's got like a bunch of mods on it, and it's like you could have spent like a lifetime just going through that stuff.
Yeah.
And some of them it'd be like something simple where it's like, oh well, like I think there was one on there where like the shotgun shot out like rockets or something just dopey, just like they did it just for the hell of it. There was one where they had the rocket launcher. It's like if you didn't have God mode on, it would kill you because it shot them out so fast it would just blow up in your face, like one after another. It's like rapid fire, and it was just stuff, and it was things you could look at and be like, oh, I see what they did here, and I can use this as like an idea. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And ripping some of those guys out of the other games was surprisingly hard. So you'd have to I would screen capture. Well, he's not in. I don't have. But Mike Tyson. Let's use Mike Tyson. He's not in the game that I showed there. But I was going to try to redo World War III, and I ended up fucking it up. I didn't have like a plan or anything. I just put as much shit I could, and I put too much shit in it. But I put Mike Tyson's in the game. And,
yeah, he was there for a minute. I remember that, definitely that.
Yeah, and so I'd have to play. I bring it up Nesticle, put that shit in slow motion, and have to, just slam down print screen key to try to get the frames of animation of where Mike Tyson's punching, which is hard to do, man. He punches like a motherfucker fast.
Yep.
And then you'd have to go through. And then, so here's your picture, and it's got him with the ring and stuff around it. So you have to go down, zoom him up like super big, and then color out the ring, make it the magenta type color that Doom considers transparent, and then frame by frame do that, and it would take hours and hours. The D-Zone thing that brought the monsters over, they just made slight fucking typing errors, and once I figured out that that's why this or that didn't work, you'd have to go through and manually type and correct the errors. And just think about like the zombie soldier. He has 4 frames of animation, and then he's looking at you forward. He's looking at you from the left and from the right, and then like complete left and right, and then like away from you left and right. It's like on the a dial on a clock, but it's like 8. It's like 8 directions or whatever. Some of them are copied over. So when he like looks to the left, but he's still facing you, and then when he's looking to the right, he's still facing you. Depending on the character, sometimes they would have their gun might switch which arms they're in, like whether they're holding it from left to right. But other than that, you'd have to do that, and then so you would have that. He'd have a pain chance, just like when you hit him, he flinches back, right? Yeah, that would be an animation. You'd have it where he would point the gun at you, and then he would shoot the gun, and so that would each animation. You have to do that for each of the directions, and then he would die. So, and the dying was actually pretty elaborate. This would be like 7 or 8 frames, and so
yeah, I was about to say it's like they would fall down and kind of half disintegrate or whatever.
Yeah,
so
and there would be blood coming out of them and stuff like that. Now they for the dying, there were so many frames of animation. They only did it so where he's facing you. So that's the thing, when you shoot a demon when he's dead, and you turn around, he's still facing you while the world's actually changing. And so that's one of the effects that a lot of the Quake finally got rid of. But that ends up being a huge amount of work. And so if I started working on a monster, it would take several hours. Even if I had what I needed to do, I already had stole all the files or ripped them out. You'd have to go and manually change them all. Then you'd have to go into your dehacked or whatever it is. And, okay, well, he's just, he's an alien now, but he's really just a demon. He's a demon. And so to make him actually, feel like an alien is like, oh, well, we might take away his where he walks around and he's growling all the time. We might take that away. We might take away his pain chance where he flinches when you hit him, or we might make him faster. You know, like you do that, and then you also have to change like the actual hit scan on the monster to make it like, oh well, he's a little bit bigger than a demon, so we'll have to make his hit radius so when you shoot him, it's all of this shit that's in there. And it's kind of stuff that developers would still be using in their games today, but it's in Doom, and like you fiddle with it when you're fucking 15 years old, man. It's really great, and I have so much fond memories of doing it. Dude, it was a bunch of work, and so you had to kind of piecemeal that stuff together. It's like, I'm going to work on this level today, and then I'm going to work on this monster, and I would do that on because I didn't have a job when I was in high school, so that's what I would do during the summer. It's like, oh, I'm going to make this monster, and you start working on it. It's like, okay, 3 days from now, it's going to be looking like something. Hopefully, it don't suck. You didn't know, man. You didn't know at all. But the modding and stuff at Doom, I think it's practically as important as deathmatch. And think about how many games just do deathmatch. Even today, Fortnite is basically just a variation of deathmatch. It's like, we're going to get in here and shoot the other person in a big 3D world. And there was some kind of baseball game on that Game Boy or something that might have been like a first-person type shooty type game. But I mean, this Doom was it, man. It's just. But tell me about what's that level you made in Duke Nukem?
I made the church level of a church that I was going to. I spent more time on Duke Nukem doing it than Doom, which Duke Nukem, if you remember, because I know you did some of it, it was very volatile as far as like when you would make you might fuck the whole, you better have backups, like backups of backups of backups. Because you could literally go in there and be like, okay, I'm just going to adjust this room. I'm going to put a freaking chair in this room. And the next thing you know, the entire level crashes. Or you're like, it was weird. It was and the program would crash.
Yeah. The build program is the literal same dev tool they used. And so they kind of like, it's kind of like Doom kind of started it. So we're just literally going to give you the program. And it was so complicated. I thought it was made by Kiln Silverman or whatever it is. It was so fucking complicated and so bizarre that I don't think there was many, third-party enhancements or whatever. Because, when DEU came out for Doom, it ran like shit, kind of like that. And so, but people just kept working on it. I remember one was called DEHT. And one of the things that Build had over Doom, and it was a big thing, you could preview that shit. You could go into the, it wasn't Duke Nukem, but you go into the 3D mode where you could see what the fuck you were doing, because in Doom you didn't. You had to do math, and your character was like 64 units tall or whatever it is. So like, okay, if you wanted the level to look like, where the doors actually fit in, it needs to be in increments of like 64 or 128, and sometimes 512. And then, and Duke, you could sit there, you could stretch the textures out. Remember that?
Oh yeah, you could stretch them like you could stretch them to fit. You could also stretch the enemies, the sprites, to God knows whatever size you wanted to, which I don't think affected the hitbox. I think it was like only it just made them look bigger.
Yeah.
But it was like, I remember like that was what was cool, is you could do that 2D plane and you could build something. And then you go into like the 3D version of it to like preview it and kind of, tweak it, do whatever you needed it to do. But it was like, if you didn't have backups saved of backups, like you could literally just like lose everything in like one little, like if you, like when you would like, okay, I'm going to put like say you're going to make a swimming pool, and you decided like, oh, I'm going to put a big open area in the middle of this floor, and I'm going to drop it down like a couple like block inches or whatever. And then you decided all of a sudden, oh, wait a minute, I'm going to get rid of that. Yeah, good luck. Because as soon as you went in there to get rid of that, it might crash the entire freaking level. Because it would close in on itself. Like for some reason, that when you would try to delete those sectors after a while, it would just like, it'd freak out. It's like it would just destroy itself. Or if you put like water, if you didn't do water just right, you would walk on it and die. Or if you walked outside, like you put a sky up like in a room and you walked into that room, you might just die. Like it was just random. Like you didn't know. You'd have to go play the game just to find out where you're going to die at.
Yeah, and I remember the sky boxes in Duke Nukem 3D are great.
Yeah.
But there was some sort of there were just codes in that build program. Like I think it was P. I think P polarized the sky, if I remember right. So it made it to a skybox, and then you might have, and I think you needed something else to put another code. So on that sector, I'm sorry, where you're outside, you don't just explode as soon as you enter it. Because I don't know whether the game thought that, you know, I don't know what the hell. It was fucking weird.
It was weird. Like you would be playing it and you'd be like, okay, I'm going to make this outside room. Like, and you walk in, because basically it's like, you would be like, if you're going to build like let's say you're building like a shack, the build would actually be the world and the shack would be just inside of it. So when you walked out, if you changed all that to like skylight or whatever, or like space or whatever, the night sky, you might just walk out of that building and just explode. Like you just didn't know. Like it was crazy. And you would go through there. And what was weird is like you could fix it. Like you would have it fixed where like, okay, that's fine. Then you go back inside the shack you're building and you'd be like, oh, I'm going to add like a chair right here. And you go back and play and it would fuck up the sky. Like for no reason at all. It was like, it was very volatile as far as like things like that went. You had to be real. It was a whole lot of test and see how this works and go back. That's why I think I had like 10 backups at all times.
You need
like
it, man.
You would do like very minute changes and then save and then test and minute changes and then save. And it's like, and then you'd be like, oh fuck, how do I, it was almost like programming a language. When you're programming a language, you'd be like, oh shit, I did something and it fucked up this line of code. And when I fix it, it doesn't fix it. Let me go back to my backup before I put that line of code in. And it, that way you can at least get back to like ground one, you know? It was a lot of that.
And that's one of the reasons, because I did a lot of Duke Nukem shit. I think I made a lot. Well, you could take Doom levels and just like quick convert them over, and so you could use that as your base for getting started. But I made some Duke Nukem levels from scratch. That high school level. I guess we have admitting that, you know, I'm now Eric Harris or whatever. If FBI's going to jump through, he made a Duke Nukem level.
Oh man, we would have been so screwed. It's like, you made a Duke Nukem level. I made a Duke Nukem level of a church I was going to. It's like back then that was just a thing. Like you didn't think anything about it. Yeah. And it wasn't like, oh, we're going to go shoot these places up. It was just like, it was the same idea of like you make one of your house. You know what I mean?
Well, the reason was Duke Nukem looked fucking like a real area, while Doom was always weird looking, right? You know what I'm saying?
It looked like some type of like, you know, alien style, you know, quasi science base, military base type thing. Duke Nukem was like, oh, you could freaking like actually, I mean, they had Duke Burger. It looked like a freaking fast food restaurant that you would go into. So yeah, it's like not only they did that, the tools themselves where you can make slopes or stuff, or you know, you had all of the graphics that the game had, so you could put in TVs and there's all this shit you could do, put in movie theaters. And so that's what kind of lended what, you know, your Duke Nukem levels were. But they were so flaky like that, and you would end up getting pissed off. Oh yeah. And the tools weren't as many tools as Doom had. And also, you know, I'd spent all that time learning the tools. Like, you know, you said stretching that monster out, but he still had the same hitbox. Remember, Will Wells knew how to use, because there was a D-hack thing for Duke Nukem as well, and Will Wells actually knew how to use, and he went through and he would, you know, he could change that hitbox of that monster to make him fit. But I'd learned a Doom one, and since Doom was just so more easier to work with, of course, when it went to source port and, you know, everything opened up on it, that helped it out even more. While Duke Nukem just languaged, and it didn't work on XP, right? I think it didn't work on XP. It hated working on XP. There was a couple of like, basically you needed a front loader at that point to get it to work well. And even then it was kind of flaky. And so we just kind of abandoned Duke Nukem. You just kind of be like, screw. I mean, at that point Z-Doom was out for Doom, but you could still play Doom without Z-Doom. Like you could if you wanted to. Z-Doom just made it, you know, made the resolution's better and it just ran better and all that. But yeah, Duke Nukem, like it hated XP, and you could make it work, but it's like, and XP kind of had like fake DOS. That's when they got to the point where it's like it wasn't like Windows 98. It's like that operating system was not running on top of DOS. Wasn't running on. It was running on top of DOS. Whereas XP was like it's Windows XP, and we kind of have a sidebar of DOS that you can run inside of it. It wasn't the same without booting up into DOS and doing all that backwards ass shit. It just was a pain in the ass.
Yeah, it's just between that and of course Quake didn't. I never got Quake to work. I tried to get Quake work on dial-up. Me and you played Alien versus Predator on dial-up. I think that was one of the last games that was on dial-up. And we freaking lived in the boonies, so we're never going to get fancy fast ass internet. We're going to be on fucking dial-up and
dial-up till you die, just about. Yep.
Quake kind of, well, Joe Rogan gets to play it because he lives in the city, but the rest of us, poor people, we don't get no fancy ass internets, and so we don't. So Quake didn't really bring, other than that mod thing that I did with the capture the flag shit where we did the mods, but even then we were just playing against a computer. We never played against each other, and so Quake just kind of passed me by, and then I just stayed with Doom, and then.
Doom was so much easier to get it running on dial-up. I mean, if you know what I mean, it's like, because you remember, like I said, it's like Duke 3D was like, sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. Doom was like the good old standard. Like, if we couldn't get Duke 3D to work, it'd be like, fuck, let's play Doom. We could get Doom going within like 5 minutes. Usually within 5 minutes, we could get something going. As long as nobody was calling the house, or doing anything stupid like that. Because you remember how it'd stutter in a ringtone format where it'd be like kind of like it would stutter like and then it would catch up whenever they'd hang up or whatever, drive you nuts.
Yeah, it was just it was just super stable. Doom was super fucking stable, and then so I fiddled with mods and stuff on my little World War III project or whatever. Until about till I was around 25 or 26, and I finally kind of put it up. It's still need a bunch of work today. I could still I still got the tools and shit. I'd have to go and remember how to do all that shit. But maybe one of these days. I doubt it because I kind of moved on to YouTube and just I like playing. I don't sit there and just play Doom all the fucking time anymore. I kind of move on, but I still like playing Doom and putting it in there every once in a while, And every few years, I sit there and go and figure out Zandronium. Zandronium's that online shit we do.
Yep.
You have to go through and open up all your fucking ports and shit, and then you have to host a game, and then so you tell your friends what you do. I pretty much provide a copy that's ready to go to them, and then so we're all in there playing Doom, and then some. Sooner or later, I have it open, so anyone on the internet going, and someone from the internet comes in, it's like, "Hey man, how you do host games?" I'm like, "No, we ain't gonna go for this. I've just goddamn trying. I worked my ass off, spent hours and hours figuring this shit up, and now you have to do the same, so you can host the games too. Otherwise, what ends up happening is there's just a couple of servers, and then everybody ends up joining the servers. Like last time I did in Zandronium, there's just this Mega Man deathmatch server. It's like you're forced to play deathmatch from Mega Man. I mean, at least you can play it. Or Brutal Doom. Brutal Doom is really popular.
Yeah.
Did you ever play that? I can't remember. Yeah.
It's like because when did that start showing up? About 10 years ago?
Somewhere in there.
Somewhere, give or take. I remember like seeing it online. It's like, oh, I gotta try this out. And it was good. It was fun.
Yeah. It's just a fancy total conversion, using source ports. But, you had to, I think you could reload your assault rifle. You didn't have a pistol. You had an assault rifle to start with. And then they just exploded in a million bits and pieces. Kind of like Gibbs on Quake, except way worse. And I think a lot of what Doom 2016, when it just been just crazy, gory, and stupid, was actually Brutal Doom. Taking Brutal Doom is there.
Like maybe they were like, people like this. Maybe we should copy that.
Yep.
As opposed to Doom 3.
Oh, well, I guess we'll talk about Doom 3. Good segue, Steve. Doom 3, I'm trying to think. I'd have to really, really think. There's some games that have really pissed me off over the years, but I guess the greatest disappointment in video games for me would be Doom 3. I built that computer. I built I think my third computer I built for that. And, I got a dang surround sound, 9800 Pro AMD. We was all hyped for Doom 3. And then it comes out and it runs like shitballs on my AMD setup.
Yeah,
And
it ran. I don't think it ran great on anything when it first came out.
It ran like shitballs. And then once you play it, it's just basically a fucking tech demo that wants to be Half-Life 1. It was 6 months before Half-Life 2 came out and just shit all over it.
Yeah, once Half-Life 2 came out, nobody gave a shit about it at all. And people were already, I remember it was interesting, but it was not Doom at all. And it was like, you kept waiting for it to open up. Like it felt like such a slow paced, methodical game of like, I'm going here. This is creepy. Oh my God, there's a monster. You kept waiting for it's like you were waiting to turn a corner and be like, oh my God, there's like 40 people in here. You got to take them out. And it never got there.
There's only a couple guys, and you'd have this monster in my closet kind of thing where, okay, a door opens up and here comes a Renovit or whatever. You kill him, and then as the game progressed, you would know automatically they don't have anything, they don't have any gameplay going on. So automatically you would know that, oh, well, they're going to try to surprise me by spawning a guy behind me, even though I've been through that area and there's nothing there. So you would shoot the Renovit, turn right around, and inevitably there would be a monster there, like every time, and you'd kill him with some just rinky-dink guns that sucked ass, man. I
don't even remember anything other than the pistol. Like, I know that I'm because I can't even remember if I beat it or not. I remember playing it because I bought it, but I can't even remember I remember the pistol more than anything. And the thing that sucked is, you remember, like, you couldn't hold the pistol and the flashlight at the same time, or the gun and so you were constantly just flashlight gun, because it was so damn dark. Like, that was the whole point of, like, we're going to make it dark as hell. You can't see shit. You're going to whip out that flashlight,
They wanted to show the lighting. Remember all the tech demos where the Renovit would come through and there would be like graded lighting come through and you'd see the graded lighting on it because it was a big deal graphically. Yeah. Hardly any fucking game could do that. I think even when they might have re-released the BFG edition, they might have actually nerfed the lighting so it ran better, or at least on 360 there wasn't much, but it was all about that lighting, and they were so stuck on the tech that there was no gameplay at all. It would have been like, okay, you need John Carmack and John Romero to really make the game. John Romero's fucking gone, so you just have John Carmack making the tech. And even though he says he don't want no story, some asshole tried to put a story in it.
Doom didn't need a story, man. Didn't give a shit. You're on Mars, kill people. You're in hell, kill people. That's all you needed. You did not need no CGI cutscenes. You didn't need no story. Find the keys, find the guns, proceed. That's all you need to do.
Remember how you would have to do lockers? And Resident Evil 2 remake, the finding the code on the lockers is so awesome, right?
Yeah.
Especially the next time you come in, you remember the codes because they're like abbreviations for Capcom series. On this one, you'd have to listen to some fucking scientist.
Oh God!
Yabba
Load
dabba
up
on
the fucking tape thing or whatever. It's like you would just be like, I don't even care. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you just get to that point of just like it's one thing like to be like, oh, here's some notes on the desk. Let me skim through them and like, oh yeah, they mentioned this locker code or whatever. That was like, oh crap, did I miss a tape? Did I not listen to every single word the guy said? It was just, God, it sucked. And it was so, I remember like one of the first mods for that was the flashlight mod. Do you remember where it just kept the flashlight on all the time?
I think they call it duct tape. Just because, if you had duct tape, you could just put the flashlight.
You just duct tape the flashlight to every gun. Because I remember it was like, you just walked around and it was like the gun just automatically showed a light on everything so you could see what the hell you were shooting. Just the idea that they were like, oh, we're going to make it suspenseful where you had to pull out that you had to switch to it. I don't even remember what key it was, but you were just constantly hitting it over and over again.
Yeah, it might have been F. And I think Half-Life might have had a flashlight with a battery on it. So they probably stole it from that too. But it's just, dear God, man, it was, You had that. You had the guns being shitty. The almost hardly any kind of like real build up to level design, and then you'd have the damn fucking computers. Remember, they were proud when you would walk up to a computer in a game. The
Oh
little
yeah,
cursor would come up, and you could move around and do computer things.
it's
No
like
one gives a
Windows
fuck.
3.1 on Mars.
Yeah, yeah.
Nobody cared. Nobody gave a shit.
And
Hey, do you remember the alpha demo that leaked out though, like months prior, and everybody was like, you had to do some jackleg stuff to get it to work.
yeah, I think you played it. I don't know if I played it.
I played the alpha demo, and I remember like downloading it, and literally it was like you had to do some jackleg shit to get this thing running. Like it was not meant for like it just got leaked, and it was like it was pretty much what you would play in the game, and you're like, man, that kind of sucked, but at least you can see what they were going for. Then the game comes out, and you're just like, yeah, that wasn't a whole lot different. It's just the same shit. So it was like that. It was thoroughly disappointing. I mean, just like how do you go from I don't know, man. It's like it didn't even feel like Doom at all.
Yeah, they had lost their way, and I didn't play much of the Return to Castle Wolfenstein, but that seemed it was there were some stupid level parts in it, but it was still mostly id at the time. But that was the part where they lost their way, and of course they followed up with Rage, and it's like, good God! And so the id that made the 2016 Doom was almost a complete revamp because I mean I don't think Carmack was there. If he was there, it was just an advisory role. And then of course you have that there. I'm sure I've showed you to it that one time that pre-Doom 4 where they had made a Call of Duty Doom. It didn't even have imps or monsters in it. It's like that. Had they released that in the demo, they would have been booed out of the fucking.
Oh yeah, they'd be like, "What the fuck is this? This ain't Doom." I mean, at that point, it was like Serious Sam was closer to Doom 3 was, and Painkiller was probably closer to Doom 3 was.
Yeah. And I remember Moopod on LTU talking about, well, you know, these games out Doom, and I had to correct him. It's like, no, this is a callback to Doom. It's not Doom. And even Doom 2016, Eternal's actually closer with it, but there's not much very exploration in these modern type games where there was in Doom. It's like you usually went through. You got to remember that your level is going to be interconnected somehow because it has to also fit deathmatch in it. Every level was a co-op level and a deathmatch level. And so you would play through that game. You'd probably try to kill a bunch of monsters. After you killed everything that you could see or whatever, then it's like, okay, I need to actually figure out what I'm supposed to do here.
Yeah. That's when you start going back and be like, I've already been in this room. There's a carcass on the ground.
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
Or, you know, you needed to make sure you're getting ammo. Do you see things happening off in the distance? Are there like elevators going up and down? Okay, you normally would see the locked doors. They'd have, okay, so I need a yellow key for this door. It might not even be the door you go through first, but you like, I need a yellow key for this door. And later on, when you get the yellow key, hopefully you remembered because there was nothing on the auto map that's going to tell you, yo, you know what?
Yeah.
This is what you're supposed to do next. And so these levels, would be all interconnected and stuff, and it would be like 40 minutes before you've beaten that level, especially the first time you've done it. And so you only spend maybe about 10 minutes shooting monsters, and you spend the other 30. Where the fuck do I go? You're a rat
going around
in a maze,
hitting the control key on the fucking walls, trying to hit that magic key. It
was space. Remember, control.
Yep,
shoot.
that's what it was.
Yep. And there was a little bit of that, that worked because that was the classic Wolfenstein trick. There was some levels, but they would purposely misalign a texture a little bit. So you're like, wow, that doesn't quite match up, and then you'd hit it, or they had the star tan where it's kind of like that, just kind of most of it's kind of this light green, and there would be like a brown one. Oh, you click that. A lot of switches and shit happened. There's no scripting in that game. It's not like Hexen was the first game used like a script, so you could program dialogue and all kinds of other shit. You had to walk over something. So you walked over something that triggered something else. That's how it always had to be. And so there'd be kind of clever little tricks. Like you go through, you step over an invisible line, and that's when the doors would open up. And then
and you'd hear that shit.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. You'd have to listen to it because you'd be like, "Oh shit, I heard an elevator somewhere."
Yep. And then even so sometimes where you've kind of activate enemies and they're coming through as a teleport, there'll be like some sort of hidden freaking small little area, there'll just be like a little square room that you can't get to, like a little pipe, almost like a pipe type thing, where the enemy could hear you. And so they'd be in another room off by themselves. They would hear you come through or shoot or whatever. And then they would come through, crawling through those little spawn areas. And so there was no actual script. They always had little tricks, but there was no script. The only things that had script, I think, would be, and it's hard coded into the levels, would be, the shit with the Barns of Hell. When you kill the 2 Barns of Hell, the whole level drops down on E1, M8, right? Yep. Or if you kill the Cyber Demon and he has a tag, he has to have a tag. But E1, E2, M8, if you're on E2, M8 and you kill a Cyber Demon and he's tagged, he could end the level. And the same for the Spider Mastermind. But those little tricks you kind of figure out, and people speed run the fuck out of Doom, man. So many more hours were played in the original Doom as opposed to Doom 3. Doom 3 is just a hack job to be forgotten, to be tossed in the dustbin. That's the fuck up. You're allowed to do fuck ups.
Yeah. You just can't do too many of them in a row. Like
Rage, following up. Rage pissed me off, bro. It enraged me.
That was the whole point.
It succeeded, man. But then thankfully Doom 2016 was revamped after that Call of Duty Doom, and it's like, okay, you guys need to make something new, and it needs to be, it's an intentional throwback, but it's still something new. And then finally with the Doom Eternal, you've done your mandatory throwback, and so now you can do something that's completely new. And I know a lot of people are going to be kind of on the fence. Eventually, you'll need to play it yourself, Chad. But
I'm going to have to sit down and play it.
There are a lot on the fence of whether this is where they wanted Doom to go, because it's like panic anxiety fighting some of these things. And well, like the Doom 2016 is kind of cathartic. The monsters are more running from you in 2016. And once you get your God's gun and your damn double barrel powered up, it's like you're just broken and retarded. You never have that attitude in Eternal. It's like, oh, here comes a bunch of motherfuckers. I better get the fuck clear out and start taking them out one on one, because they're going to destroy this whole damn area with bullshit. But I really liked how Doom has progressed as a series. If you go back and kind of look at the whole big thing, Doom 64. I mean, it's basically just a total conversion for the original Doom, but the way they add that they succeed where Doom 3 wanted to be. It's like Doom 3 wanted to be Doom 64. It fails. So it's like, it's dark as fuck. It's really fucking creepy and it's bizarre. And they kind of bring back that sort of horror element that Doom 2 and stuff really just became just almost action games. But it's always Doom is able to, like, even in the actual picture of the logo, right, where it's got the blue on the top and like the red at the bottom. It's like a mix of genres. Like you got horror and like demons, and there's like tech built into it. So that's why you get like cyber demons and shit. And it's fucking it's amazing, man. It's amazing, and it's one of those things that. We'll be 80 years old. We'll be playing Doom 125. I mean, I can see it happen.
Be having LAN parties at the retirement home
with coronavirus on the outside. Y'all can't come in here.
Can't come in. We're playing the Doom. The Corona conversion. You got to think about it. It's like, I wonder what it's going to be like, say, like in 40 years with gaming. Like, I wonder how that's going to reflect on, like, retirement communities. People going to be like, we're going to play our Fortnites.
There'll be a lot of them where there'll be something where they can't really adapt to new. And you already see that. It make people just prefer older games to newer games. Some of that's just because the newer games are just trying to be as popular as possible, and it makes them almost by default as generic as possible. They're just not games anymore. They're more of like, cinematic experiences. And in some of it's just, we're old fuckers and we can't handle anything new anyway.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's like, you look at some of these games like the Uncharted series are kind of like, there's some gameplay in there, but it's very much like a movie,
Yeah.
as opposed to, just.
Without Nathan Drake and without them graphics and stories, Uncharted sucks. That is
Yeah.
what carries it. Otherwise, it's like a terrible damn Gears of War clone that's one player.
Yeah.
That's what it is. And, the ponies would shit on you for saying that, but if you really look back, that's what it is. Especially if you went back to Uncharted 1. Uncharted 1 is crap. It's bad. It's hard. It's not very fun. But even that one had Nathan Drake. He's really excited about going and getting some stupid treasures, and you kind of get excited for him in a way that I don't even think Laura was ever able to do, because you just think that Laura's just a rich bitch and she's kind of bored with life, and she just feels obligated. It's just a hobby to go in there and kill white dudes and then take treasures. It's just fucking.
It's like, that's what we do. It's Tuesday night. Yeah.
I still like Old School Tomb Raider, man. It's great. The last one wasn't very good, by the way.
I vaguely remember it. Like, I remember it coming out, and it just it didn't even last at the theater long, I don't think. I can't even remember what the name of it was.
Oh, I was talking about the game.
The movies. Yeah, I was thinking about
as far as the movie, it's okay. It follows the 2013 game pretty close until the end, where it tries to be different, and when it actually goes different, it's not very good. Of course, because we got to be progressive, she can't have no boobs. But even then, I like that actress. She was in Deus Ex Machina, and she's pretty good. I think they're signed on to another one. I guess it's going to follow on the Illuminati type story that the reboot's done, that they fucked up in the last game. The Shadow of the Tomb Raider, you just don't care once you figure out what's, this was the big thing we've been leading up to for 3 games. Like, wow, this is stupid. But I think we're at 1 hour and 45 minutes, pretty ended. But dude, just talking about Doom it's so fun. It makes you reminisce. Eventually, I have to get my freaking server up and running or whatever it is. It's a huge pain in the ass.
Play some more Doom.
Play some old school Doom. Eddie's always down for that shit.
I was like Doom Shareware was like the best part of Doom, because it was like episode 1. It's like knee deep in the dead. It's like, for some reason, that was my favorite Doom. Yeah. Like, Doom 2 was fun, and all of Doom 1 was fun, but that first episode was just like, it's just a blast. Probably because I played it the most, but it's still fun to go back through.
Yeah. I really there's so many like official damn sequels now that I ain't even caught up with. Like, they were like, oh, well, here's Doom on 360, and it's going to come with a whole new thing. And I ended up I think me and you might have played through that on PC. I'm pretty sure we did.
I think we did.
I can't even remember. No Rest for the Wicked. I don't really know. That might have been. I can't remember what the fuck it was. But I think there's like several of them. I've never actually played through the master levels. And then there's just so many like complete, like the Team TNT guys would make here's a complete damn game, 32 levels of Doom. No special fancy mods or anything like that. It's just, it works in vanilla Doom 2. And then, that stuff will be great. I mean, it usually ends up being better than Doom 2, because Doom 2 has some weak levels in it. But
yeah, Doom 2 was like, I love the super shotgun, but man, some of them enemies were scary as hell. Like, just damn hard.
Yeah, the Archvile's an asshole. Chain gunners were often be used by, people who made levels. They would be used as cheap bullshit kills. It's like if you have the double barrel. Normally you would have the double barrel as your default gun, and we're gonna open up a room and there's 5 chain gun guys. Well, you're fucking dead. By the time you switch guns, they're all gonna be shooting at you, and they're gonna take life. It's like, oh well, you didn't have the right gun. That's where they kind of needed to have enemies that are more of a threat, because what the fuck's the Barret of Hell unless he's right up in your face and he closes.
Oh yeah. Dude,
he's just
he's just a damn like bullet sponge. That's all it is, man. It's like he takes a lot of hits, but damn, you can get around him pretty quick.
Cacodeme is slow as fuck. a couple of shotguns going to take out a Lost Soul. And so your Doom 1 guys, they didn't have a threat to them. Shotgun guy was the highest threat. Shotgun.
Yeah, he really was.
And then Cyber Demon. And then, so they needed to add threat, but they added them in, and it's, of course, you've played way more user-created content than actual Doom 2, and then those chain gun guys are just used to get cheap hits off your ass, man.
Yeah.
The Macubus, a lot of Macubuses could be a real big trouble. But I still love Doom 2. I'll have to do a review for that one day. I need to play through it again one day. Just play it as vanilla as it is. Because I haven't done that in a billion years, but maybe me and you will play that one day.
Yeah, we might do that.
Yeah.
I hadn't played Doom 2 in forever. I played through Doom 1 like within the past like 5 or 6 years. I hadn't played through Doom 2 in probably 15 years at least. And I used to do that. I used to go through them just for the hell of it. You'd just be like, it's the blast. You just get caught up in it and just go through them.
Yeah. But your list of games you need to go back through, just as the generations go, they just stack up. It's like, oh, well, I want to play Super Mario Brothers. Oh, well, I want to play Legend of Zelda. I want to play Street Fighter. And it's like, wow, before you go, you got your back catalog is just ginormous.
Yep. And then it's like, you take it by like weeks, where it's like one week you'll be like, oh man, I'm really into freaking playing some Street Fighter. And then you'll be like, okay, I'm done with that. If you ever do that where it's like about a week or so, you're like, oh, I'm really into this. And you're like, okay, I'm done.
Yeah. I usually have like a list of what I'm playing next. So I try to kick to my list, but sometimes you throw some shit in there.
Just to be different.